Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I've got two special guests here with me. I've got Miss Sherley Spears and, of course, Bob Bluthardt. You may have seen both of them out and about because y'all have been busy on this project. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. If y'all want to kind of introduce yourselves and tell everybody what you got going on.
All right. Well, I'm Sherley Spears, and thank you, Senora, for having me
Of
this morning
course.
along with Bob. And I am the founder of the San Angelo NAACP Buffalo Soldier Memorial. And I have been in the San Angelo area about 8 years. I'm originally from Fort Worth, and I am the immediate past president of the San Angelo NAACP. And I am currently the president of the Fort Concho Museum Board and a couple of other things that we don't need to mention for this.
I was
But
about to say, what else do you,
yeah,
what do you not do? I think that'd be a shorter
well,
list.
I enjoy working in the community.
That's amazing. Bob?
Well, my name is Bob Bluthardt. I am the site manager over at Fort Concho. I've been there kind of a long while, about 42 years. And the big story here that Shirley and I will be talking about is that the Buffalo Soldiers were, are, and we hope always shall be a major story for the site.
Yeah.
And as you will be hearing in this presentation, it's not just a footnote. They were a major part of the fort's founding, its operation, and its history today. So the fort is very pleased to be a part of this. In somewhat of a way, I'm kind of partially responsible for this because I still remember the day. I should have marked it down when Shirley walked in my office and said, "Tell me what I need to do to make this Buffalo Soldier thing happen." And I told her that, and by golly, 18 months later, here we are. So it is an amazing journey, and as you will hear, it's going to be one heck of a weekend at the end of the month.
Yes, yeah, we are definitely looking forward to it. I mean, can you believe it's finally here? Can you?
I can't believe it's finally here. They've laughed and they've gotten angry with me at some point when I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, can't we do this in like 6 months? And of course we can't. But they've done a great job. Our architects and our construction team have done a
yeah.
great job of getting this done. Because it really has been just over a year
Mm-hmm.
that when we first had I think it was April of last year, we did our first press
Groundbreaking was
conference and
April.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so now here we are. And just in a couple of weeks, we'll be opening it up for the public.
That is fabulous. Okay, so we got to go back and just talk about, who are the Buffalo Soldiers? Because there's unfortunately still a lot of people who don't know. So what do you tell them?
Well, let's start with the title.
Right.
It's an unusual title. We don't have aardvark soldiers. We don't have hippopotamus soldiers. We don't have elephant soldiers, but we have buffalo soldiers. So where did that title come from? And there's the story. Blacks have served in the United States military forces as volunteers since the beginning of the Republic in the 1770s and the 1800s. But their service as good volunteer soldiers for the Union during the Civil War convinced Congress that finally it was time to allow black men to serve in the regular, there's the key word, regular peacetime army. That did not occur. So on July 28th, thus the significance here,
Right.
1866, an act of Congress was passed that created 6, ultimately later 4, units called regiments staffed with all black enlisted men. This is the beginning of the black military experience in the regular army. Now, where did the term Buffalo Soldier come from? Well, historians have been arguing, writing, and kicking that one around for over 100 years. Basically, the accepted story is that the black troops, when they went west, and they were stationed by and large west of the Mississippi, and came in contact with the Native American warriors of the plains, well, the Indians hadn't seen black troops before. They've been fighting the white guys for years, but the black troops were something different. And the story goes that the Indians equated the curly, matted, darker hair of these soldiers and their tenacious courage with that of their sacred buffalo, and you can fill in the rest. So
Yeah.
there's the story. And ultimately, it was not an insult. It has been morphed in the 20th and 21st centuries into a brand, as we say in the business today. So that's how you get Buffalo Soldiers, and they were a big piece of Fort Concho's history over its 22-year history.
Yeah, I was about to say we got to talk about that, the significant role they played right here in San Angelo in the Concho Valley.
Right, all of the regiments, the black regiments, were stationed at Fort Concho at some point or another.
Yeah.
And as Bob just said, Congress started out with the 38th, 39th, 40th, 41st Infantry, and that was later combined and resulted in the 24th and 25th Infantry. But the 9th and 10th Cavalry had already been a part of the initial order that came out in 1866. And so at some point or another during the history while they were there, they all served at Fort Concho. And as Bob said, they were a critical part
Yeah.
of the different campaigns that came out of Fort Concho and the different work that was done in the western part of the United States.
Yes.
There are a few additional points there, and Shirley's been doing her studying the last 12 to 18 months. She can rattle those numbers off just like the rest of us. Proud of you, Shirley.
Thank you.
We were the headquarters of the famed 10th Cavalry. Now, all the Buffalo Soldier units are important, but for some reason, the 10th Cavalry had better writers or just got involved with more interesting things. But the 10th Cav are sort of the lead dogs of the Buffalo Soldiers, and they were headquartered. That is, their main force was stationed at Fort Concho between 1875 and 1882. And their commander, Benjamin Henry Grierson, as in Grierson Street here in Santa Rita. Ever wonder where that name come from? Now you know. He was a part of that. Then you have Lieutenant Henry O. Flipper, as in Flipper Street, that runs between South Oaks and Burgess. There you know where that came from. Flipper was the first black graduate of the West Point Military Academy. Not the first to attend, but he was the first to get through the rough hazing and discrimination that was thrown at him. And he served at Fort Concho for about a year. It was his third posting after he got out of West Point. And by and large, when you add up the whole fort history, 22 years, we had black troops on the site for 16 of those years. And there were some periods in the late 1870s when the post was all black, other than the officers and flippers. So we're not, again, talking about something that's just, a sidebar. This is part and parcel of the fort's history. They were there, they built it, they patrolled the area, and they deserve to be recognized.
And it's important to note, adding on to what Bob just said about these were black soldiers, but all of the officers were white at the initial onset of all of this. And eventually, we were able to get black officers in the military, but at the beginning, they were all white officers.
Yeah. So let's talk about, the monument, the memorials themselves, because I mean, like you said, this was like a year and a half process. So kind of walk us through that, all the steps that you had to go through.
Okay, how much time do we have? Okay, so after I went and talked with Bob, I've always had a good working relationship with Bob, and having served on the Fort Concho board, we've just developed a good working relationship. And so, as he said, I came into his office, and it's like, okay, what can I do? How can I do this? And because I trusted his opinion, and because so much of this history rests with the fort, that it seemed like the expert in my mind to talk to was Bob. And so we kind of threw a couple of things around, and then we went and engaged a couple of other influencers here in the city, and got an architect team to get on board, and I spilled my guts on what I wanted and what my vision was, because I felt that this was a vision that I had perceived. It wasn't that I just said, oh, let's just do this. It was something that I believed was a part of a spiritual experience that I needed to be able to do this. And I also believe that when you are given an assignment from that spirit world and from God himself, that you have to kind of just trust it, and he'll make sure that all the other things fall into place. And so I felt that all of the opportunities that I had been a part of here in San Angelo in the 8 years that I've been here, they've all been very pleasant. And so I leveraged off that, starting with Bob, to say, okay, how can we do this as a community? It wasn't a Sherley Spears thing. I wanted it to be a community thing. I had grown up during the civil rights movement in Fort Worth, and so I understand Black history and was a part of Black history. As I tell people, I am Black history. And so it was important to me that we have something here in San Angelo that showed that Black people had an important role, something of value, to be a part of the city. We're a very small community, basically, and our numbers as far as the Black community are 4% or under, according to the last census. But we have done some important things. And starting with the Buffalo Soldiers getting here around 1868, and the city was established in 1867. So without the fort, and as
Yeah.
Bob has already explained, the primary group of soldiers that were there were the Buffalo Soldiers. And so it's important for us to know that part of the history and not just think that even in this community, that it was not represented by any black people. So that was important. And so we formed this small little core team, as I call it, and we started researching and put some packages together and some presentations together. And we pulled in Carl White from Parks and Rec, and we tried to figure out how could we do this if we didn't get any money or support from the city, because I'd already had an experience earlier where we needed to make sure that this desire that we wanted, that we had the money to do it. And so we formed this small core team, and then I went and talked to the executive committee. At the time, I was president of the San Angelo NAACP, and I said, okay, we need naming rights. Can we name this after the NAACP, which has been around since 1946?
Right.
And typically they have an annual banquet to raise funds for scholarship. And so in the 4 years that I was president, we did some different things, which, you know, tied it into what was going on with COVID. And so we had to kind of resurface and do some other things. And so they said, yes, we'll name it this. And so I started working on that, worked with Bob and the small core team. We presented it to the city in April of 2022. We had selected an area where we thought would be the best place. And we wanted a memorial, an outdoor educational type thing, as opposed to a monument
Right.
that would be, you know, millions of dollars perhaps. And so the city unanimously agreed that we can have the space at the Paseo de Santa Angela to put this memorial. And the design that the architects had come up with featured 10 8-feet monuments. And so within those, we call them soldiers on the team, because it's like the way they are structured and laid out in the memorial pathway there, then they look like they're just protecting that area. Yeah. And it's right across the street from the fort, which at one point was part of the land that the fort actually
Or the
had.
military
Oh,
reservation.
wow.
Anyway.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, of course, you know, through the years, all of that has changed. But it's like they're back at their resting place, and I think that their spirits will be able to be at rest finally when we do this.
Yeah.
And so after we got approval to build it there, we had to start figuring out what we could do. Within a couple of days, I had worked with someone who's well known in the community that you'll see on the 28th to help me raise some funds. We had gotten a quote from the construction team of how much it was going to cost. And so within a couple of days of this announcement, we had raised over $300,000
Wow.
to get us kicked off, you know,
Yeah.
to get us started. And then we kind of created a fundraising campaign to raise the additional funds that we would need.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And okay, so speaking of the 28th, you kind of gave us a little tease here, but
Okay.
y'all are having a party. Y'all are doing it up big. What can we expect that weekend?
Well, I am a party girl, and I love to have a good time, but we have to take care of business, and then I party as hard as I work.
There you go.
Okay, I work hard to get the job done, and then I party just as hard.
We love it.
Not as much now, but back in the day, I did. So what we're doing is we're having a dedication ceremony at 9 o'clock on Friday morning with our local elected officials, the mayor and a few others. And
Yeah.
we're trying to see if some of our other elected officials, Congressman Pfluger, Senator Perry, and so forth, Representative Darby, can make it. So we're doing the dedication. We have an unusual ribbon cutting that we have arranged with the Chamber of Commerce to help us with that. I'm working with Walt and Heather to get that done. We'll have a little brief program, you know, invocation. We have to pray. We have the posting of the colors, the retirement of the colors, with Goodfellow assisting in that regard. And we have some remarks that will be made, and then we'll actually cut the ribbons. I'll say it like that.
Oh, there you go.
But you have to come see what that's all about.
Ooh, okay.
And so, you know, it's important that we recognize that on this day, as Bob mentioned, this was the day that Congress approved it. Now, at the same time, Senora, this is also the 75th anniversary of the integration of the military this year. And it was around that same time, I think it was the 21st or something like that of July,
Yeah.
that the president declared that integration would occur in the military. So we're taking advantage of doing the celebration for the Buffalo Soldiers and also celebrating
Yeah.
the opportunity for our Black soldiers to really move on and be a part of a full military experience without being separated.
Wow,
and
so much
segregated.
significance just in, wow, that is amazing. That's amazing.
And so that's going on Friday
Uh-huh.
during the day, and then the memorial will open up. We have partnered with the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the YMCA, the San Angelo State Park. We're going to be doing rides on the in canoes on Fort Concho, on the Concho River.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a fishing excursion on the Concho River. They're actually going to stock it with fish prior to that. We'll have a private swim party at the Y, and that is going to be, I believe that's Friday afternoon. Friday morning. No, that's Saturday morning. I believe that's Saturday morning. And then we will have opportunities for our Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to basically serve as docents, to walk through the memorial and help people explain what's going
Wow.
on. Each monument, there are 10 of them, and each monument will have a storyline that will be addressed, and you have a QR code at the end of that monument that will take you out to the website, where we will have additional information from the Buffalo Soldiers West Texas website. And it will give you additional information because you can't put everything on the panel.
Right.
So
There's
it
so
gives
much.
you a good introduction, and that was work that we had from our dear friend Dr. John Langelier, who is known as an expert on Buffalo Soldiers, Bob, Sarah Ross, who is the educational coordinator at the fort, Kim Henry, who works on nonprofit opportunities for the community, and myself, and we kind of worked on that. And then our friend from Arizona, Charles Young, also helped to just give it that review to see if everything that we were saying made sense. We worked on that for what, 5 weeks, 6 weeks?
It was pretty intense.
I was just like, yes,
It was
yes.
a pretty rough experience because
You know the old joke, you could take 5 historians and lay them end to end,
Yeah.
and they still wouldn't reach a conclusion. We spent hours
Yes.
on writing and rewriting,
I'm
and
sure.
Shirley's made a point here, I think, that is critical to the ultimate success of this project. This is not the only Buffalo Soldier memorial in the country or even in Texas, but it is definitely going to be one of the best for a
Yeah.
simple reason of its educational component. I like statues, I really do. I like big statues and horses. They're expensive, and that was not in the budget. And I like putting things near major highways where people can drive by, but you can't stop.
Right.
And statues don't have much of an educational component. This is going to be not only a tourism site, plenty of parking nearby, and then when you're done, come see the fort across the street.
or
It
vice
also,
versa.
or
Yeah.
vice versa, and which is air conditioned,
Mhm.
at least portion of it. The QR codes and the text on each of the 10 soldiers is all going to tell a story. Statues only do that if you know what you're looking for. We spent hours and hours trying to refine each of these stories to an accurate pinpoint of getting people's attention. And I'm very proud of the way it came out because I've been to many other similar monuments and statues, and yeah, they're all good, but they don't quite give you the story that you're looking for. So
Right,
hopefully
right.
people will see something unique here, something effective, and something that will outlast the two of us and everyone we work with.
Right, right. And so,
Yeah.
at the memorial on Friday, there's green space out at the memorial site. And so all of the events that go on there are free. And we want to encourage the community to come out and support it and attend and bring your children and grandchildren and nephews and nieces. We'll be playing games, cards, dominoes, croquet, all of those old-fashioned games that they played during the early frontier days. And all of that is free. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you'll be assisted by our Buffalo Soldier youth ambassadors, who are the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and they'll be able to help you and answer some questions. Sarah Ross is working with them to bring them up to speed to
There
make
you
sure they can
go. Yeah.
respond to some of the questions that we know that we'll receive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have, hopefully, we're waiting to get confirmation on some of the food vendors. But hopefully we'll have some food vendors out there. We'll have plenty of water and barrels all throughout the area because it's going to be hot.
Yep.
And we want people to be as comfortable as possible. Those off-site events may be $4 or $5, depending on your age and that type thing. For instance, to go on the fishing excursion, I think if you're over 12, you have to have a fishing license.
Right.
And so that is also on our website for you to register for that. And that's $4 or $5 or something like that. but everything else at the site is free. And then Friday night, we have a great soiree that we're having in the Staples, a soiree in the
Yes,
Staples,
I love
right?
it.
And so I will have an opportunity to thank all of the people that have worked with me over the last year who've helped to raise money. Our sponsors, some of them are anonymous, some of them aren't. And just have an opportunity to kind of reiterate what you're going to see there at this memorial. As Bob said, that will be there long after he and I are gone.
Well,
Not that we're going anywhere in the near
Not-
future.
yeah, I was
but-
about to say.
But we,
Not soon.
again, when you do a project like this, you just have a feeling in your soul you're doing something for the long term.
right.
Preservation of the past has been important to me the many years I've worked at the fort, but I also tend to look towards the future because that's what you can truly affect. And this is going to be a major cultural milestone for the city, and could be down the road the beginning of some other enhancements in that public space. Folks who have lived in San Angelo more than 25 years will recall that that chunk of land was pretty ugly. Up until the
Right.
program, it was just not very attractive. And now it's not only attractive, but it's a public support area, and I think the best days are even ahead.
Educational and meaningful at the
Absolutely.
same time.
Absolutely.
Well-
And there was an attempt, and I want to make sure that anyone who knows Sue Mims, who had attempted to do something years ago on the corner of 11th and North Bryant, to build a statue. As I mentioned, that's millions of dollars, and she just never could get footing to get the support that she needed. And so I waited to make sure that there were still not some interest in trying to get that done. And so once we knew that wasn't going to happen, unfortunately, Sue passed away in 2019.
Yeah.
And I had met with her and talked about that. I thought that was something that was going to happen. But then when I received these directions, then I knew that it was okay to move forward. And we did get permission to move forward, even though the idea is different than what she had. It was still to honor these Black soldiers. And Bob mentioned that, we have the Buffalo Soldier National Museum in Houston, but this memorial is the only memorial in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And the National Museum, the Buffalo Soldier Museum in Houston, basically focuses on the 9th and 10th Cavalry. And here in San Angelo, we are actually being able to recognize all of the
The
Black
poor
veterans.
infantry guys never get in, white or black in the Frontier Army. The infantry slogs
Yeah.
always seem to get pushed aside. So and
Yeah.
since in my salad days, that was what I portrayed, an infantryman. It's good to see the ground pushers, as they were called, to get their dues. So
Yes.
all
Most
good
definitely.
and an exciting weekend, and folks just need to mark down 1, 2, or 3 of those days and come out
Yeah.
and join us.
I was about to say, we covered a lot of information, but all this is on your website. You can find all the information, get all the details. Guys, thank you so much for what you've done and for being on the show today.
Can I mention one other
Sure,
thing?
go for
Okay,
it.
and that is Sunday morning. We're
Yeah.
having a religious service. We have to close out with a religious service. The first Black congregation here in San Angelo was Greater St. Paul AME. And it was started by a Buffalo soldier by the name of J.W. Walker.
Yeah.
That church has since stopped having sessions and services, but we do have the pastor of the first church that basically pulled away from Greater St. Paul to start a Baptist church, and that is in the person of Pastor Sankirk Bailey.
Yeah.
She will be delivering a short message on Sunday morning, and it is called the J.W. Walker Religious Memorial Service. And so we will highlight him in a special way because religion has always been important to the Black community. And so I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss the opportunity to mention that service to close everything out on Sunday.
Most definitely. Well, guys, thanks again. I mean, it's going to be a party, everybody. So mark your calendars, get there, get to everything you possibly can, because this is huge. This is huge.
BuffaloSoldiersWestTexas.com is the website.
There you go.
You heard it here first.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, thank you so much. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.